One of the most vital parts of any player stash in Tarkov is cases. These items allow for increased storage space for a large variety of items depending on which case you're trying to get your hands on. There are a bunch of different cases ranging from dog tag cases all the way to the premium and aptly named thick item cases. Each one has a purpose, and while some are certainly better and more sought after than others, if you're offered a free case to anyone, no matter which one it was, most people would gladly accept the extra stash space. And this goes for double for people who aren't EOD accounts. That standard account stash size is so tiny compared to the other versions. So for them, cases are non-negotiable to be both successful in the game and so that you have more than one kit's worth of gear safely stored away. However, one of the biggest issues when it comes to cases in Tarkov is just getting your hands on them. Some are much easier to obtain than others, but in general, the cases that people actually want are a rare luxury that could maybe be toned down to facilitate better use of stash space across the board. Some very easy to find ones like wallets, while not technically a case, it behaves like one, allowing 4 slots for money, which, if you're a hoarder like me, these 4 slots will come in handy. The pistol case is kind of an odd one, but still very handy for your sidearms, magazines, and even some extra spots for ammo, so it could be treated as a pseudo ammo case for the time being. Cases like the dog tag case, for example, can be simply purchased from the vendors. In the case of the dog tag case specifically, it's around 340,000 rubles, which sounds like a lot, and considering it's purchasable from Therapist Level 1, it is. But because of the interior size of the dog tag case, you'd be surprised how quickly it makes that money back and then some. 100 slots for tags are a lot, and depending on where you are in the wipe when you buy it, the number of tags needed goes down to make a profit with each case. So again, some are easier to obtain than others. The Lucky Scav junk box can just be bought with money. It's more expensive at 1.1 million rubles, but again, those 196 slots for your junk and barter items can make that money back in spades. Some of the more sought-after cases that I would argue are a tier above these are the money case, docs case, magazine case, and the ammo case. Money cases are a luxury, holding up to 24 million rubles in one spot. And for the longest time, there was a chance to find them in marked rooms across Tarkov. To my knowledge, that is no longer how you can get them. The barter from level 4 Therapist of 5 chains, 2 rollers, 2 skulls isn't impossible to find, but you will need to hit a lot of safes before you make that exchange. It would be interesting to have the barter at level 3 and a raw purchase at level 4 for a couple million rubles, maybe after completing decontamination service. Like they say, you have to spend money to make money. Docs cases are probably the most balanced of the storage items because the barter that is used to acquire one has been in the game for years now. 1 lion, 1 cat statue, and 4 horse figures. Seems very reasonable for what it can hold. 16 slots for keys, money, and intel items such as folders and flash drives. Very respectable. And there are some quests that give you docs cases as rewards. So this item I have the least issues with and is almost perfect. Mag cases are awesome and really help get rid of the clutter that can come from having multiple weapons in your stash. You can still actually find these in Raid, but only in the reserve marked rooms and can be purchased after completing the infamous quest to Shooter Board in Heaven. And the best part about this case is that for 2 blue fuel cans, some nuts and bolts, and metal cutting scissors, you can craft one, making another easily obtainable case obtained for some of the more lucrative ones further down the list. Ammo cases are another one that are honestly fair for what it does, holding ammo and 49 slots for it after having quest rewards, barters, and raw purchase options. Means most people have at least 2 in their lifetime during a Tarkov wipe. So if we want to categorize them by tiers, it's probably the most bang for your buck in terms of how easily they can be obtained, how effective they are with storage, and how much potential money they can save overall. The next level up, I would say, are the med case, the grenade case, and the fridge/thermal bag. The grenade case is definitely the most niche option out of these because it only does one thing, and that's hold grenades of any type, including the underbarrel grenades. It can still be very useful, but only for those who love to just chuck stuff at people. Luckily, there are both barter and craft options for players to take advantage of. The thermal bag/food case is very handy, and I personally feel later in a wipe when you might be crafting food or collecting them for sugars and other crafts, the barter option to obtain these is fairly reasonable. A bunch of hot rods, tarcolas, herrings, and squash. These will be especially useful again later in a wipe if you're someone who crafts a lot of the super waters and moonshines down the line. And the med case is of course invaluable if you want to hold any number of medical supplies respectively. Luckily, there is a quest reward, and can simply be purchased or bartered for if need be. So all of these cases can be obtained if the player really wants to focus on getting their hands on one. They're all within reach of having multiple copies, and any of these cases won't break the game. But of course, this has all led up to the final group of cases, the ones where you might not see one in a wipe or ever, depending on how dedicated you are to Tarkov. Item cases, weapon cases, and their bigger versions, the thick cases, are some of the most sought after containers in the entire game, having the most amount of space available for your general items like weapons, armor, gear, or anything else you might have laying around. And while these cases are incredibly useful for storage, getting your hands on them can be a real challenge. The easiest is technically the normal item case, having 2 barters and a raw purchase for euros, which is a little odd. You can always convert your rubles to euros and buy one outright. Currently, they're sold for about 15.5k euros, which when converted to rubles is around 2.3 million rubles. So a steep price to pay for 64 slots, but a couple of these and you would be in a better place with storage. Same can be said for the normal weapon case. 50 slots for weapons and attachments can be extremely useful if you're good about breaking down your guns. And having 4 different barters and a couple quest rewards to acquire them is very handy to boot. But they certainly will not be cheap, and the thick versions are even better for storage, but the trade-off is that they're even harder to acquire. One of each is possible to earn from quests, and others will have to be traded for, and again, while there are plenty of options for them, my biggest issue is how difficult they are obtained even with these barter options. If we really think about it, the cases in the game hurt no one, it just makes life in your stash much easier. I wish they were just a little easier to barter for, or have some ridiculous raw purchases for tens of millions of rubles. I understand why they're hard to get, but I suppose the main question is, do they need to be so hard to get? I wonder what everyone's stash situation would be like if they had at least 2 of each case, especially the bigger ones. As someone who has problems with hoarding loot sometimes, not having my thick item case right now is really hurting. I just can't get my hands on a Found and Raid LEDX, but maybe I'll find one day. Because crafting it is kind of out of the question now with Lightkeeper being needed to get the book for the craft. Yeah, there's technically a spawn in Lighthouse, but it's stupidly rare, and I don't really want to farm that one spot over and over again just to have the chance to get the book for the craft. I still need to buy one for Med Station level 3 also, which is an exorbitant amount of rubles altogether, but I do have that money if I wanted to, but it's like, oh, man, I just wish I could get my hands on this case just a little bit easier, don't you think? In immediate hindsight, a lot of these cases are actually relatively easy to get now that I went through and laid everything out kind of fairly. But even still, I suppose the main argument of wanting better cases for items and weapons still holds true. I really do wish they would make them easier to get. They're not gear in the times where it matters, they don't provide an advantage against other players, they just facilitate better stash storage, which to me doesn't feel like it needs to be as restrictive as it is currently, especially late game and when you're trying to upgrade your hideout for non-EOD users. The amount of junk you will acquire, especially at the beginning of a wipe, is crazy, and not having room for it can be very frustrating and not conducive to good gameplay. But this is just me. What are your thoughts on the cases in Tarkov? Are they too strong? Are they balanced? Should we be able to hoard them at all? Leave some feedbacks in the comments down below, and be sure to subscribe for more videos about slightly nuanced topics that may or may not affect direct gameplay moments. I hope to see you in future ones.